All right. Somebody wanted a
Love
reprise
to
of
hear
the.
the music a second time, but
It
good
always
day,
makes me
everyone.
dance.
Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us for episode 21 of Unsung Heroes of the Cloud, recorded on May the 4th. Be with you.
As always.
Today we'll be discussing the Azure SDKs with Laurie and Sandeep. But before we dive into the SDKs, Laurie and Sandeep, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having.
Yeah, the SDK. Powerful stuff. Really force-driven, I would say. Sorry, pun intended.
I think we're going to get a lot of puns into today's podcast.
I always try to behave because he makes me always feel like I'm making dad jokes, and that's a little bit shaming from time to time. Sorry, I should have given you the heads up that is actually is also a dad joke show, with a lot of puns intended, and we go a little bit by that kind of humor. So sorry.
No worries.
All
But
right.
given it's May the 4th today, did any of you do anything Star Wars related today?
Well, every year on May the 4th, I make my kids Star Wars pancakes. William Sonoma makes these molds that are beautiful in principle and require a ton of Pam to make sure the pancakes don't stick to them. But I was able to squeeze those in before we started recording this morning.
So did they get a little Yoda pancake?
Yoda, Darth Vader, and a stormtrooper.
Cool.
Ooh. Yeah. Luckily, it's stormtroopers. They don't hit too much, so that's good.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And you, Sandeep, did you do anything special today already? Since you're already early in the office.
You
You're
are
muted,
on
man.
mute, Sandeep.
It's the first time that ever happened during the show. Typically, it's during a Teams meeting, but this time it's during the show.
Well, the Force, someone did some Jedi mind tricks and muted Sandeep.
Yeah. Or silenced him. Are you finding it?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There he is.
It's not picking my device. So I had to switch devices. But I generally play some EA video games like Battlefront 2 or something, and play as a stormtrooper because it's fun.
Okay. And you can still win.
You can still win, yeah.
Okay. So I got a pro tip, by the way, for those who are on Star Wars Day and they want to do something fun. Always try to play some music on Spotify if you have a Spotify account, a Star Wars music. You will see something really cool happening then, because the slider bar changes into a lightsaber when you play a Star Wars music.
Okay.
I will have to.
No, always. The force is strong in that player, really. Okay.
But up to the topic of the day, we were going to discuss something really forceful, which are the Azure SDKs. And I think, Sandeep, you had a couple of things to show us and then maybe a few demos.
Yes. And I'll start sharing my slides.
So yeah, I think we just want to give you a quick overview of what's going on with the Azure SDKs, and then Sandeep's going to do a few demos that shows you the real power and the force behind the SDKs. So if we go to the next slide, the SDKs have been around for a long time. Some of you may have first encountered them a few years ago. Some of you may be just looking at the SDKs for the first time. And what we've really been trying to do is move from a bunch of different repos that support lots of different services, but with inconsistencies in what languages or operating systems might be supported, to a new model where there's a set of Uber repos. There is consistent language support across all the services and very clear places to go get the packages. And so this is all under the guise of trying to be more idiomatic and approachable to make it easier for you to get started with SDK development. So if we go to the next slide, we've got the links to all the repos, which we'll make sure to share in the show notes. But really, this is about making your experience as a developer easier and making it easy for you to get started with the tools and languages of your choice. Let's go to so yeah, here's all the links to the repos. You can access everything on GitHub. Our 5 core languages are .NET, Java, Python, JavaScript, and Go. And we've got some up-and-coming support for Android and iOS, as well as C and C++, depending on the use case for a particular service. But we encourage you to come to the repos, ask questions, file issues. You can even make contributions. We welcome code contributions back to the SDK as well, and encourage you to get started.
Cool. There's a lot already for that. I would typically say the lack of SDKs is disturbing, but in this case, it's totally not the case. There's a lot of SDKs for a lot of different languages. So I'd really hope that people also contribute to it, because that's the importance, right?
Right.
Yeah, I know there's, we've got someone that's made probably, I think, over 50 contributions to Service Bus, doing a talk at an upcoming conference about his experience contributing to the Azure SDK. So we definitely welcome contributions.
Let me guess, Sean Feldman?
I believe that is the name, yes.
Of course. Who else? Who else? Sean is a well-known figure in the service bus and messaging world when it comes down to MVPs, and he's one of the guys that actually has a good heart when it comes down to contributing to open source and to things that make our services better. So kudos to you, Sean.
And I do have a question here. In the SDKs, how much of the SDK is an automated process, just reading off of API specs, and how much is still hand coded in the SDKs?
So there is a lot that is hand coded. So we generate the base of the SDKs from the Open API specification, but then we build a convenience layer on top that adds models and makes things more idiomatic for the language. We are doing a ton of investment in our code generators so that we can generate even more of the code that will enable us to support more and more services faster. Unfortunately, the Azure SDK team can't grow linearly as all of the Azure services grow. So this code generation technology is really key to allow us to scale.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and like basically SDKs are broken down into 2 parts. One is called management plane, one is called data plane. Management plane is analogous to Terraform or ARM templates or newer biceps, where you can create and manage resources. But using management plane SDKs, you can do it in your own language. Let's say you are writing code in, say, TypeScript, and you can manage your resources in TypeScript rather than going through Terraform. But you're free to use like Terraform as well. But we do provide SDKs in management planes. They are generally found under a directory called Resource Manager. And inside Resource Manager, you have lots of services, and each service has their own management plane. Whereas the second part, which is data plane, which is specifically like a client library. So this library will let you use the services like query Cosmos DB, authenticate or using Active Directory, send messages to Event Hub, and so on. Like there are so many things. Like every service has its own data plane library as well. These are generally found under the folder called SDK, and like we have mono repos. Every one of these languages are stored in a mono repo, and these are the 2 primary folders you can look at our GitHub. You can look at other folders as well, but these are the 2 primary folders. And so the question arises, why should I as a dev use SDK? There are a couple of highlights. There are more points, but few key points why you should use SDKs are like, authentication logic is pre-baked. Most of our services are REST API based, so retry mechanism is taken care of. They are memory profiled already, so load testing, stress testing, and like everything that comes with creating and deleting a client has been already tested. These SDKs, if you are at a latest version, are already in sync with the APIs. And if there is a breaking change in an API, when you upgrade to the new SDK, you see it at compilation time rather than at runtime.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest point is all these SDKs are open source. If you have a use case and you want to see that use case on the SDK, you can contribute to it. You can check for errors, you can raise issues, and if you see a vulnerability, create a CVE ticket. And the next is like get involved with our Azure SDKs. You can look at the releases here. You can look at our Twitter, Azure SDK. Please retweet that. Check out our blog. There is a newsletter, and raise questions on Stack Overflow. Tag us, and we'll reply to those. Stack Overflow is a go-to for all the devs. We would love your inputs there as well. And so before I go into demo, I need to describe what the demo is about. Like we have been told most of the time our demo is about storage accounts or Cosmos DB. So this time our demo is about Service Bus. So the demo is I've created a REST server, and REST server is using some open source tech, like for let's say JavaScript, it's using Express. And we have a message sender, which is using our Service Bus SDK for that particular language, and it's sending message, and then there is a receiver where we receive messages, and which basically prints the message on console. So if there are any questions, we can take it now before I jump onto the demo.
I would say go ahead, knock yourself out, or not too heavy.
Okay.
And can you maybe zoom in a little bit on the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's better. Thank you.
That's better.
That's
Thank you.
better. Yeah. So we have a service bus here called Dev Radio, and inside that we have a queue. It's called demo queue. And so with further ado, I'm going to jump on. I actually don't know whether this should work. Yeah. Maybe you can see it now better, right?
Yes, way
It's
better.
readable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this one is about receiver. With a receiver. So everybody complains to us that all our demos are in .NET. So I'll not even bother showing a demo or anything about .NET. Believe me, .NET SDK is there. So we'll start with our newest language, which is Go. And in Go, we have a package called Azure SDK Messaging AZ Service Bus. You just import that message. I've also imported the log class from AZ core, and I've imported .n just to read the .n file. I'm using connection strings. In production, don't use connection string, use our new managed identity. So basically, we have connection string and the queue name, and it reads it from there. And I'll start from the main method here. So it just sets a listener for logging, and it will set up log events. And then we get the connection string, and we create a client, create a receiver, and send messages. That's pretty much it. So creating a client is here. I've broken it down so that it's easier to show. Creating a client is just one liner. Second line is basically checking error. Same goes for a receiver. So from a client, I'm creating a receiver so that I can receive messages. And the arguments are connection string or queue, which are like straightforward. nothing special there. And finally, in receive messages, I am running a loop, an infinite loop, just to keep on listening to messages. Obviously, in production, you'll not do that, but here we are short circuiting a lot of things. So once you receive message, if there is an error, there is an error. Otherwise, message body gets printed, and that's pretty much it. Like, it's like, if you look at the code size for it, it's like 60 odd lines, and half of them are about error checking and like having making sure that it doesn't fail in case of error conditions.
Mhm.
So maybe 20 lines of code is actually for service bus, which would not be the case uh, if we actually coded with REST APIs. So uh, for some, so let me just build it, and then we'll just run it. So it's listening for messages now. Right now I haven't
Mhm.
sent any messages, so why don't I start sending messages? But
Mhm.
instead I'll send it through my Go code. Same thing, same two libraries, one for logging, one for this. Additional library I have imported is Gorilla for creating a REST server.
Yeah.
So same thing, I'm creating a new client. I'm creating a new sender instead of a receiver. And I have a method here where I take the JSON from the REST API and uh, send a message uh, to the service bus. And these are all error handling and REST
Yeah.
API kind of things, which again you can choose not to do, but it's pretty much that. And we are again getting environment variables from the .env file. So let me build it. And I, I'm not too sure why my terminal is not responding. Yeah. So go build, and then
Sent. Makes sense.
so the server is on,
Mhm.
and I am going to use a tool called Insomnia, which I used to, and I'm not sure whether I can zoom in on this. Oh, I can. So good.
Yes.
So
Long live Electron
in
apps.
yeah. So this is a Go environment. Basically, what an environment does is basically, I should show you that it sets a base URL and the name of the program. Rest is here. So if I say name, the name should go as Go. The base URL for me right now is localhost 3000, and
Mhm.
this is from Go. So if I send this message, it should say this message was sent from Go. And here we see the logging, we got the auth claim and the management. You got all that by default instead of like struggling through something, you know. And here, if we see the receive, I received a message. So this is basically faster development, if you ask me, and like taking care of all the race conditions. So this is how we do it in Go. I'll keep the receiver running, and I'll jump on to some other language. So let me go to, let's go to JavaScript. So I'm here on JavaScript right now, and JavaScript, I have the same thing, but in I've used Express. So
Mhm.
I've used Express to build out this server. The important method here is send message to service bus. And if we go here in utility, first we are like unmarshalling JSON. That's pretty much it. Then again, we are creating a service bus client and a sender. It
Yeah.
is quite similar to Go. If you're used to Go, you can come here as well. Everything is kind of similar. And then we send message. and we send message async. And once the message is sent, we close the sender, and then we close the client. And that's all we need to do. So I am going to just do npm start, and my server is ready to accept messages. Let's go to express.js. Same thing, the name should be express.js, and the message should contain the name. And I sent the message. I didn't do logging here. I should have, but it's not production. So this one, it's coming from express.js. And the same thing, we can reuse the same receiver. And now you might say, hey, but most of the people use TypeScript. Sure, we do. We can use the same library for TypeScript as well. So
To be honest, today should be only about JavaScript, you know.
yeah,
Warn
but
you.
Mike, time out, Mike.
no,
Well, I'll be
we
silent in my little corner.
we cannot. We just cannot make people unhappy. TypeScript people unhappy. And
No. Go ahead.
to be honest, it's not a lot of difference if you go to the. So this here I've used Nest.js because that's the most popular library, and the same thing like in my controller, I have a get for the base homepage, which throws an error for me, and in send message you can send a message. And let's look at the service. In send message, I've just created a injectable class, and we are just sending asynchronously to message bus. And to be honest, using the same exact code, because TypeScript is just a superset, but we provide types as well in our libraries by default. So why not? I
But that makes it really
run it.
easy for people to use any kind of SDK because it's so generic in usage. Everything is so
Yes.
streamlined, unified, even though it's in the language that they know. So that makes it really easy to understand the endpoints that you programmed against, and that there should be no confusion. You can just easily read any kind of language next to the other. That's what I like about the SDK so much because it's so easy to use.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is running. Let me go back to Insomnia, and let's go to TypeScript. Now the message should say TypeScript.
Oops.
The server has not started yet. I should have seen it. Now it has started. So
The server was
yeah.
called Alderan, right?
Yeah.
And it's
And
suddenly
I should have
disappeared.
named it like that. Yeah.
It's somewhere in the
So now,
galaxy far, far away.
so the servers has started, and this time we have a Next.js, a message from Next.js. By the way, if you're looking at here, refreshing claim happened automatically through the through our SDK. You didn't have to write logic to refresh the claims and all. So it happened automatically. These are the benefits you get by using SDK. Don't have to think about your like ancillary stuff. You just focus on your business.
And outside of the claims, it also looks like the logging itself was provided by the SDK, and there was very
Correct.
little you had to do to get logs of
Yeah,
your application.
that's it. Just these 5 lines. Actually, one line. I've broken it down for prettiness. So
Yeah, but
that's it.
uh,
Let's jump on to. Actually, let's do something wild here. Let's jump on to Python, but let's run Python on a function app, right? Do we support it on managed compute? Yes, we do. So same single class doesn't do much. Most of this is about REST. Let's go to service bus send, get queue name and connection string from the environment, create a client from connection string. You can use create a client from default credential or managed credentials and so forth. Service bus client get queue sender. So it's idiomatic in Python and all. People like to use get word, to get something. So this is idiomatic, and then send your message, create a message with the service bus message class and just send it to the messages. So why don't I show you how do we do it in our this is another plugin extension from our division. It's called Azure Extension Pack. So yes. So let me go here, and I'm just going to deploy this function app. And while this is getting deployed, we can jump to something else, I guess, or maybe
Hyper
it's,
jump away.
yeah. Well, it's getting deployed. Let's look at, we were talking about JavaScript. Why not plug in Java here? So Java service bus send. So I'm using VS Code. Generally, people use IntelliJ. So we are friends of JetBrains products as well. We don't mind. We have extensions for them as well.
Yes.
So
Wonderful Azure toolkit for IntelliJ, by the way, written by us. And no, really, it's really good.
yeah.
Tooling.
Yeah, it's a real good tooling. I was smiling because I use it.
Yeah,
So
it's written by us, so we have it there. So that's good.
yeah, so this is just a Spring application, and we have a message controller which takes your send message request. Everything else is error handling. The important thing here is send async message. So if we do check message, I'm just getting these from my application YAML. It should be here, and just getting it in production. Obviously, there would be a different mechanism. But here, using the famous Java factory methods, so factory and builder methods, we do get a service client builder, get a connection string, make a sender, get a queue name, and build a client. So this is idiomatically Java, and with the sender, we send the message. So why don't we run it? So I'm going to run it with debug here rather than compiling and doing it. So this application is running. Hopefully I don't have any debug points. And let me jump on to Java. So yeah, Java. So Spring comes with its own super special logging and all that, but we do have our service bus logging as well here. If you see, you get it by default. You can change it. So it's target as demo queue and all those good stuff. So yeah, we got it from vanilla Java. This is a message from vanilla Java. So since we are talking about vanilla Java, why don't we go to some other flavors of Java?
I
And the
love how
flavor
prepared you are.
and flavor of the day
all
is,
the languages and frameworks, and really want to meet developers where they are.
yeah. And apparently flavor of the day, I mean for years, is spring. So let's go into the spring season. And this is what we have. We have a service bus application, standard Spring application. In the POM file, I should have shown POM file. In the POM file, you're just importing Spring Cloud Azure starter integration. And in here, I have a send message which talks to this interface send, and which has a bean here which just creates a service bus entity. So you see the boilerplate code here is even smaller. I shouldn't have done that. It's just setting the default entity type as service bus entity and setting the default message handler using a service bus template. And from that service bus template, we can override the callback and say, hey, on success, do this, on failure, do this. Rest the service the callback will take care of sending the message. Let's just run it. So yeah, Spring started and Spring is doing its thing. Let's go to Spring. And shouldn't have done that. So this proves that I've written the code. I've not copied it because I was debugging, by the way.
Which is
So
good.
yeah, this is the message like where Java Spring message was sent to Java Spring. Actually, where is it? Yeah, message was sent from Java Spring.
And
Uh,
if I may ask you a question, as you were writing all these demos, and given that you were developing in Go, JavaScript, TypeScript, Java, Python, and TypeScript, and Spring, where do you go to know which methods to call and how to construct a service bus template? How do you find that out, or do you just know?
I didn't know. I knew it for just Go and Java. I didn't even know it for Spring. I just go to the repositories and I also go to Azure Samples.
Mhm.
Okay.
So if you know the language, it's very easy to follow Azure Samples. So you'll find samples either in Azure Samples org in GitHub, Azure Samples slash the programming language, or you can find it in SDK itself. If you go to the SDK directory, there would be samples, and I'll show it to you. Let me show it to you after all these demos. And last flavor of Java before I run for it is JMS. Now, somebody would say, hey, we don't use these direct bindings, we use JMS. So here I have a message class where I'm just sending a string message,
Mhm.
and queue controller, I'll not even going there because it's just, sorry, application, I'll not go. Queue controller, we are just set using a JMS template and converting and send. That's it. No other code required. And of course in the pom file we have incorporated
Yeah.
Spring Boot starter for Service Bus GMS. So let's run it with Java messaging service. So and it should start. Let Spring do its stuff. And JMS, where is JMS? And yeah, the message was sent using JMS, and you are getting good logging here as well from us. Oh, sorry. I was supposed to go here. Here, actually. This message was sent from GMS, and it is showing us everything. And you have logging here, and you have our stuff here. So let me stop this and I think the Python stuff would have been uploaded to server. Yeah, it has been uploaded. Let's stream logs here. I don't think I have any logs. But let's look at Python. So Python here, I want to show the environment as well. This environment is
Yeah.
actually in here, and let me send it. Message was sent to service bus and we received it in Python. So I think that should end my demo. I'm just killing the services and I want to show you where to find these. So my Python function is here. That's pretty much it. Let me look at Azure Samples. So this is an organization called Azure Samples.
And I'm going to ask you to, yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Zoom
you.
in. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is Azure Samples, and you can find a lot of samples. So let's say Spring. I think it's Java. Uh, so you can find for Java docs and all that. Maybe I have not prepared this. Spring Spring Boot samples. So you'll find everything here for Spring Boot. So let's say I go to Service Bus and I can find these things here.
Yep.
Our awesome devs have written. So let's look at queue, how to send through queue. So everything is here. I'm just jumping on the code. Where is the controller? Yeah, topic send controller. So same thing, JMS convert and send. Maybe something more substantial. Not using JMS. Something which is code heavy. So single namespace, source main, and service bus, topics and controller. Yeah. So here you can find all the code here. Either look at this sample or you can jump to Azure SDK for, let's say, Python, right? So Python, I was also talking about SDK. So you can go here at SDK. Maybe let's stick to service bus. I should have selected earlier like that. But if you go here in service bus, and you can look at samples here, like async samples as well. And by the way, all our libraries support async, even in coding paradigms like Java, where you have to import other libraries to do async stuff. So we support that. And here we have everything. Like, let's say, how to send to a topic async. It's here. So you can look at it. So either go to the repo or go to Azure Sample. You'll find what you're looking for, because we have so many use cases here documented. And you can take a look and you can find out what you're trying to do. And again, we would encourage you to come back here, raise issues, create some PRs, and help us out. And if you don't like a language, means don't see a language which you like in our SDKs, feel free to reach out at Twitter, tweet that we want this language. And to plug, we are running a survey for Rust. Maybe go for that survey. We'll decide on Rust based on that survey.
Okay. If you have the link to that survey, we'll put it in the show notes so people can find it easily.
Yeah. And I'll stop sharing my screen. And I'm back.
And so, yeah, that was great, Laurie, Sandeep. Thank you so much for coming here, because the title of the show is Unsung Heroes of the Cloud, and I think the work that you all do with the SDKs doesn't get enough praise.
No.
Every company that builds an application on Azure and that needs to interact with Blob, with Service Bus, with Cosmos, with any service needs an SDK, because otherwise they'll end up writing their own libraries and that would take too much time. So the work y'all are doing is super important, and thank you so much for showing this all today. And the amount of demos you showed is exactly up our alley. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's all we wanted. I mean, I do have a question though. The version that we were seeing, was that R2? Sorry, lame joke.
Okay, I didn't get it. Sorry.
R2, D2,
D2, yeah.
I think it's I think it's time for my pills, or just to be in the corner and be silent and behave.
Yeah, I think Mike needs a timeout. But again, thank you so much for being here today. If you have any links that you want us to share in the show notes, please send them our way. We'll put them in. And thank you so much for being here. And Laurie, I hope I catch you in the office one of these days and we can grab a coffee together.
It would be great to meet live in person.
Yeah, hopefully one day, if I ever get out of Belgium back into the United States, but that's a different story. All right. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for delivering great tools. And this is really, as we say, an unsung hero which doesn't get enough attention. So bye-bye, Han Solo. Meet Azure SDK. This is your new hero. Bye, everybody.
Yep.
Have a nice week.
Yep. Bye-bye.